Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Pretty great.
That was, now I know it's 4. Yeah, let's try that again. How's everybody doing today? Oh, that's so much better. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm Daniel Mack. I'm the Associate Dean for Collections here at the University of Maryland Libraries. And I want to thank you for coming to our Spring Semester 2014 lecture in our The Future of the Research Libraries speaker series. We have a great speaker today. Heather Joseph has agreed to speak with us today. Heather has worked since 2005 as the Executive Director of SPARC, the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resources Coalition. She leads the strategic and operational activities of the organization and has focused SPARC's efforts on supporting emerging publishing models, enabling digital archives, and establishing open access policies on the national and international levels. Prior to joining SPARC, Heather spent 15 years as a publishing executive in both commercial and not-for-profit publishing organizations. She was a founder of BioOne, a collaborative organization designed to help nonprofit publishers operating independently. Heather also serves on the board of directors of several nonprofit organizations, including the Public Library of Science, Duraspace, and Impact Story. She works closely with the NIH, the Department of Energy, the National Academies of Science, and other agencies. She is a widely respected voice on open access and other scholarly communications issues. Today, Heather will speak to us on the evolution of open access, what might happen next. Please join me in welcoming Heather Joseph.
Thank you so much for spending a little time with us this afternoon and for inviting me to come and visit you on this beautiful campus on this beautiful day. As Dan said, what we thought we'd do is spend a little bit of time talking about the concept and the idea and really the implementation of open access. Take a quick look at where things stand in terms of how this emerging concept is being realized in not just the library but the academic environment, and even more increasingly in the general public environment writ large. And then take a look at some emerging trends that might give us some ideas about how things might change in the relatively near future. And there's 4 trends that I really want to take a look a little bit in depth at. And then at the end, spend a little bit of time listening to you and taking questions about aspects of open access that you'd like perhaps us to dig in together a little bit further. And just as a tiny bit of background on SPARC, we're actually a membership organization of academic and research libraries. We're headquartered in Washington, D.C., but we have member libraries of all shapes and sizes here in North America, in Europe, in Asia Pacific, headquartered in Japan, and recently we've been working to expand our presence into India, China, and Brazil. So we're increasingly a global presence. And we're a very sort of unique entity in terms of library membership organizations. We're not a traditional organization in any sense of the word. We are an organization that's tasked with being a catalyst for action in opening up the system of how scholars and researchers share their work. So our charge that we're given is to really expand the reach, the communication of the results of research and scholarship in a very specific way, in a way that takes advantage of the opportunities that the internet and the web bring to us at our desktops every day. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is not only reduce the financial pressure on libraries to be able to provide access on our campuses to the latest, the best, and the most useful information, but also to create a more open system writ large for how scholars and researchers can share and utilize each other's works. And we center on the concept of open access as sort of the end game. Right? The question that we really ask ourselves is, if we could reinvent the system of how scholars share their work from the ground floor up, so that it's a system that is more closely attuned to benefit the aims that the scholars who are producing the work themselves want to achieve, what would that system look like? And so the idea of open access, which is the idea that you can make the results of research that scholars have traditionally produced without expectation of payment, really centering on works published in scholarly journals and scholarly monographs, immediately available for free on the open web, and couple them with the rights for users to do what they would like to do with them in the digital environment. Download, copy, crawl them as software, text mine, data mine, remix in new and unusual and creative ways. Really use them for any lawful purpose. That would be the thing that most scholars want, right? You want your works to reach the widest audience. You want people to be able to begin to build on them and to be as creative as possible. And you want the ability and the rights to do that with other people's work as well, provided, of course, that your work is properly attributed to you as the source, right? That's always the caveat in open access, is that the license that we tend to say is the gold standard in open access is that you can give people the ability to do whatever you want with my research as long as I'm credited for that original idea, sort of the bedrock idea in the academy. So when we talk about open access, we're increasingly talking about open in a larger term. We really did begin focusing on journal articles and monographs, but increasingly we're looking at the corpus of materials that scholars produce and looking at applying the term open and open access to a wider variety of materials. We're definitely still focusing on articles, but also increasingly on the data that the articles are reporting on, the data itself as well as supplemental data, and then things that people are also doing over and above the data in the articles, creating educational resources for classroom use, curricula, courseware, textbook chapters, really anything that can be used for teaching, learning, and research purposes. So it's a very interesting time to be digging into and working on the concept of open access, as the playing field, I think, is getting wider and wider, feels like on a daily basis. So I wanted to start with just a little bit about what's the latest. You know, we've been talking about the concept of open access since it was coined in 2001, so going on 12 years now, well, almost 13 years. And in the beginning, it felt like the progress was quite slow for people understanding and really having any kind of uptake in open access practices or policies. But what we're seeing is a real steady and accelerating growth in almost every indicator that we can think of around open access. Because we started focusing on journals and journal articles as a primary output to create an open way to share, we like to track the uptake of the publication of open access journals, right? If we want to encourage people to create a new system to share journal articles, we've got to have a wide variety and a robust variety of open access journals available in any discipline that folks might want to publish in. And you can see this graph shows the really incredible increase and the significant acceleration in that increase in the establishment of open access journals over the past decade. The Directory of Open Access Journals actually right now lists almost 10,000 open access journals that are available for full peer-reviewed publication in just about any discipline that you can imagine, and really coming from every corner of the world. They're not a local phenomena, they're not a US or European phenomena, it's really a global research and scholarship. And this trend line is mirrored in terms of the number of articles that are being published, right? It's not just journal outlets that are publishing 1 or 2 articles. You can see that that upward curve is really replicated in terms of the number of articles that are being made available through open access outlets. If we flip to this graph, you'd also see that it's an upward growth line, but I think it's an important upward growth line to most academics. Right? One of the ideas that powers the notion of open access is that if you make your journal articles available in outlets that allow anybody, anywhere, anytime to read them, the assumption is that more people will get access to your articles, more people will read them, ultimately more people will cite them. And what we're finding is that the trend line in terms of citations, it varies across disciplines, but the trend line of what happens to citations when articles are published in open access journals is always you get more citations when you publish in an open environment than you do when you publish in a restricted subscription access environment. So it's a great trend line going up. As I mentioned, part of what's important about open access is that it's not just that the materials are freely accessible to read, they're also freely accessible for people to use in the digital environment. And that requires the use of an open license like a Creative Commons attribution-only license. And we can see that the adoption of those licenses over the same time period of the increase in open access journals, we're really just looking at the last 10 years, really. That's the main time frame, mirrors that upward curve. Same thing in terms of the establishment of open access digital repositories. We care about not only publishing our research for this generation, but also making it accessible and available to future generations. So that means having it available in long-term preservation vehicles like digital repositories. The growth in digital repositories that have open access materials in them, as you can see, that curve line has also been accelerating and kind of exploding. I think it's really interesting to think about the idea of digital repositories, digital archives, alongside of journals. Because many people still want to choose to publish their articles in traditional subscription access journals for a variety of reasons. Whether your discipline still really requires it in the tenure and promotion process, or there's I think a variety of reasons that people might choose to publish in a traditional subscription journal. But it doesn't mean that just because you're doing that you can't make your article openly accessible after an embargo time frame. Most journals allow you to place a copy of your article in an open digital repository and make it accessible 6 to 12 months after journal publication, which is a really nice way to kind of, I think, reap the benefits of both worlds as the market hopefully transitions more fully towards an open access environment. The final trend line, or the second to final trend line that we see, is the number of policies, whether they're coming from academic institutions, whether they're coming from research funders, whether they're coming from collections of institutions that are being established mainly by, on campuses by faculty voting and saying, look, we think that the wider sharing of our research should be the default mechanism on our campuses, or research funders who say, if we invest in the conduct of scholarly or scientific research, we expect the widest possible communication and distribution as really part and parcel of making sure that that research investment is leveraged as widely as possible. The number of institutions putting these policies in place has also gone up on this very steady and indeed accelerating trajectory. It's going up so fast, actually, this trend line, that we now have research out there being done that's trying to project at what point in time the number of open access articles published in open access journals will actually outstrip the number of articles that are published in traditional journals. And it's kind of amazing that there's two trajectories here that the researchers, David Lewis was the lead author on this, projected an aggressive time frame and a conservative time frame. And they're only 5 years apart in terms of when they think that will hit that sort of tipping point. And what's amazing is when we started talking about open access, in 2001, I think I would never have thought that this curve, the projection, would be within my lifetime. And now we're looking at an aggressive time frame that's only 4 years away, or 3 years away in 2017, and the conservative time frame of 2021, which is kind of an amazing thing to see. The basic message, as you probably got, is that the trend lines in open access are pointing to the fact that this isn't a flash in the pan phenomena, but rather it's something that's here to stay. The adoption and the, I think, momentum behind the growth of open access is really quite remarkable. That's all well and good, right? Growth is great. Numbers tell a good story. It's nice to know, that there's lots of people doing lots of things with open access journals and open access articles in a variety of places. But it's not really the full story. I think the most interesting story is what we're seeing in terms of emerging trends that are coming out of the open access environment, and are really a result of having now this robust set of instruments to publish in, repositories to put materials in, and a corpus of openly accessible and usable materials to start working on and really digging into. And it's kind of fun to see what's been happening in terms of the outcomes of having these materials available. And the first trend that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is the idea that the traditional notion of the publishing process that we've had to go through, which has always been this tightly connected set of events, is really beginning to break apart, right? So we say the publishing process is disaggregating. What does that mean? The process of publishing, in the scholarly environment generally has these 5 components, right? The components of registration, right? You submit your article to register that this idea is mine, right? You want that registration out there in public so that you can get credit for that idea. The certification and the validation of those results, and generally that means peers review your articles. Making the world aware of the idea that you've just registered and had certified, right? The distribution of your article through a monograph, through a journal. Making sure that result is permanently available for people to use, and then ultimately, we all know that our system is fueled by, you make your ideas available out there, and ultimately you're rewarded for those good ideas in terms of tenure, promotion, funding, research funding, all those good things that accrue. And that process has traditionally been really a tightly connected, tightly coupled process that you go through with a single entity, right? Your publisher in general. You submit your article, the journal controls the peer review process, they distribute the article for you, they'll send it to the proper place for archiving, and then based on the brand of the outlet that you're publishing in, impact factor, citation counts, your tenure, promotion, and funding rewards are really tightly connected to that process. What's been fascinating is that as the environment of distribution has opened up, so have the connections between these processes are beginning to really loosen. And they're loosening in really fascinating ways. As people are thinking about, I'm going to make this stuff open for people to work on, they're starting to question, do I really need to have one entity control every single part of this process? And that's led to some fascinating developments. Technology is also helping amazingly, accelerate this process. First phenomena that we're really seeing is in terms of registration, right? Getting my article in. We think about typing our article in Word and then sending it to a publisher, and then once it's accepted, the publisher will convert it to whatever the format is that they want to publish it in on the web, create a PDF, create the tagged XML, and get it out there to the world. We're now seeing an environment that's really finally starting to hit our desktops that are direct to publication authoring tools. So we have all kinds of environments, starting with things like Ipython Notebook, that allows you as an author to begin to write an article wherever you are on whatever device you want to work on, and begin to put all of the components together that are tagged in machine-readable and structured format so they can go into a very utile web-based environment for people to use, and you don't need to go through a third party for that tagging and for that structured markup, which is really fascinating. Ipython Notebook is one of the, I think, best used or most commonly, becoming one of the most commonly used iterations of this, but they're not the only one, right? We're seeing, I always pronounce this wrong, or I don't know whether they say Autharia or Autharia. I say Autharia, it sounds better to me, I don't know. But it's a collaborative platform for you to not only work on articles by yourself that end up in the structured format, but also to work with your co-authors. So think of like a Google Docs environment where instead of getting that like not so pretty Google Doc out at the end, you end up getting an article that when you render it in a browser looks like the kind of article you want to have published in a journal. And this is liberating to authors, and I think it's making authors really think twice about, we've always been dependent on a middleman to help get our ideas to market, and that's kept this system of how we communicate our work really sort of stuck in this model that has worked reasonably well, but that the web does really give us tremendous opportunities to think about innovating and to think about making work for us to get our scholarship, our research out there in new and really useful forms. Perhaps just as interestingly, in terms of the awareness component of the cycle, we're seeing tools that display scholarly articles and bring them to the world come to the market with all kinds of new capabilities. I like to call them display tools with muscle. And the best iteration of this is a tool called Lens. And this is actually a piece of software that the publishers of the biomedical science journal, open access journal, eLife, have created. But it's not a piece of software that is relegated to use in any one journal. It's an open source piece of software that allows you to import an article that you want to look at that's marked up in XML, and then to display it on your computer. It renders in your browser, and you and your browser control how the article displays and what you do with the individual components of the article in a way that you can't do with most primary journal content. So it allows you to take the article, import it into your browser, and then look at the different components of the article and say what you really want to do is manipulate the figures or create a new tabulation out of the numerical material in tables. You can actually do that on the fly in your browser without having to get any kind of permissions, download any kind of new software. Lens allows your browser to build up the capacity to actually work with articles in an incredibly robust new way. One of the things we were thinking about with this technology, first of all, it's open source, so many other open access publishers are beginning to adopt it and adapt it because they love the idea of letting their users import not just one article, but perhaps import a series of articles and start to think about doing localized text mining, data mining, computational analysis across different elements of an article in a way that doesn't require you to do huge bulk downloads or download somebody else's API. You can use tools that are local on your computer and then return a visualization of the materials that you're interested in an article on your desktop and use it your own way. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about the ability to do this, and I think it's just first step in this generation of new tools that will allow us to bring these ideas that are in articles to life and to market in just an incredible variety of new ways. That's the second half of that. Also in terms of the awareness aspect is that people are beginning to think about communication of scholarly articles, scholarly ideas in ways other than simply communicating them through journals. And we're seeing people really apply the concept of social media and social networking to articles that are coming out and ideas and things that they're publishing in science and scholarship writ large. You're probably familiar with tools like Academia and Mendeley, which are really they're social media platforms to help you interact with articles and authors who are of interest to you and ideas that are of interest to you out there in the digital environment. A similar thing is ResearchGate, where you're able to really move around the social media environment, but based on your research interest rather than, like I had a cupcake and it was really nice, like the sort of normal inane social media chatter. I mean, maybe I'm the only one who tweets things like that, I don't think so, but it tends to be, the social media environment is really set up to help facilitate communication among communities who have shared interests. And the scientific and scholarly community is beginning to build these platforms that take full advantage of that environment to create new communities and to share materials that are in our articles in these new kinds of ways. And they're really worth checking out. This is a a very different type of an iteration of how people are using the social media environment for communication of articles. This is an article that came out in this journal called Allegra just a couple of days ago. And Allegra is this very interesting virtual lab of legal anthropology journal. But this author in the legal anthropological environment wrote an article about how increasingly researchers in her discipline are using social media to compose articles, to get the components of articles. So Authoria is a collaborative authoring environment that's very structured, right, where you say all of our authors are going to come to this one place, work on a document, and it's going to end up structured and looking like a traditional journal article. What these folks are doing is saying, look, we're coming up with the ideas and we're sharing these ideas from, here was my idea and I shared it on Twitter. Then I fleshed it out with my one or two collaborators in a blog environment. And then we're converting that process into ultimately a peer-reviewed article that's going to appear in a traditional journal. But you can see all these different kinds of iterations of how this open environment is encouraging collaboration and providing workspaces for scholars and authors to share across traditional disciplines, across geographical boundaries, across space and time in ways that I tend to be a little bit like agog over this kind of technology, so I apologize. I want to say like in really awesome ways, but they are ways that are groundbreaking and really changing the way the system is set up. The most important place, though, that I think that we're seeing changes happening is in the idea of certification, right? In peer review, we all recognize that peer review is kind of like democracy. It's imperfect, but it's the best system for doing what it does that we've got. And we're seeing peer review services changing in three really important ways. And first and foremost, peer review has always been the purview of the journal who is going to publish your paper. We are seeing that change in a significant way. We're seeing peer review services spring up that allow us to say, I want my article certified. I want the validation, right? I want that peer review on my article, but I'm not sure where I'm going to submit it, or I'm not sure what I want to do with it afterwards. I want that validation, but I might want to do something different, or submit to a different kind of a platform than I normally do. So we have services like Rubric, Peerage of Science, which are very similar services, which are journal independent, but which aggregate peer reviewers in a variety of disciplines, and for a small fee will provide top-notch peer review for an article, and then you as the author can choose what you want to do with that article, what its life will look like downstream in terms of the outlet that ultimately your article will be published in. Or you can consider, maybe I'm just going to publish it on my website and make the reviews public. It's really, really a new era in terms of the options that people have for selecting peer review. And speaking of peer review, it's not just decoupling that's an important trend, right? The second trend that I think is incredibly important and is really going to spell the transformation of the scholarly research communications process, excuse me there, is the way that peer review is actually, some people say reforming the system, some people say transforming the system of peer review. I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think there's elements of both of that in it. We're seeing trends like post-publication peer review. Right now, we all know peer review's generally taking place before your article ever sees the light of day. Right? That's the general trend in the environment. There are some exceptions. There have been preprint servers where articles are posted prior to publication in journals. In physics, forever. Archive is the best known iteration of that. We're seeing more of these services spring up recently. I can remember I started my career as a publisher for the American Astronomical Society. And I can remember when Archive was first established in, it was late 1990 or 91. Folks saying, well, of course physicists have had a history of always posting their preprints. It'll never happen in disciplines like biology where we just don't share our work ahead of time. And it took, 20 years later for biologists to begin to do this, but bioRxiv, which is essentially not a clone, but it's a close relative of Archive, where articles are shared before they're submitted to a journal, has been established and is being used. It's one iteration of how things are happening, but the more, I think, radical approach is the approach that folks similar, one example is the Public Library of Science, the PLOS Labs tool, which is called Open Evaluation, which allows you to apply peer review at any stage of a publications process, right? You can say, I've got an article, I'm going to put it up on my website, I'm going to put it up wherever I'm going to put it up, and then here's a tool that has a structured set of criteria that anybody can deploy to provide non-anonymous, right, open, credited reviews of my article and of my idea online. It's a very interesting sort of notion to think about. One of the biggest complaints that researchers, that scholars have about choosing an outlet to publish their work in is they want to get their idea to market to their colleagues as fast as possible. And the biggest slowdown in the system, the biggest bottleneck in the system right now to getting the ideas to market is how long it takes for people to identify reviewers, the reviewers to agree, reviewers to turn it around, for you to make the revisions, and then generally anywhere from, in best case scenario, a couple of months to, could be much longer than that, several months to, worst case scenarios, a year before your article sees the light of day. Folks are asking the question, well, what if I'm comfortable with the notion of putting my article up, and saying, I think this is a good idea. And then I'm going to run the peer review process in different stages after that article, after I posted that article. So in essence, I've done my registration, and certification can take place in stages over time, but I've gotten the credit for that idea, it's out there, and I'm happy to refine the idea in more of an open environment with my colleagues, either open or closed. It can be anonymous, it can not be anonymous. It doesn't really matter, but it takes that bottleneck out, it takes that delay time out. And I think this is an idea that people are really simultaneously excited about and terrified about the prospects of what it might rot on our system. But it is an idea to really watch. We're seeing people really beginning to attack this in a variety of different ways. We're also seeing people saying, okay, the idea of open peer review, it's not just PLOS, right? This is called open evaluation, where you have the option of saying, I was the reviewer. But how many articles do you review over the course of your year, over the course of your career? And you don't get credit in any way, shape, or form other than the goodwill of, generally you do get credit. You get credit from managing editors like me who will give you more work to do because you're good and you always respond to us, so no good deed goes unpunished. But that's not the kind of credit that most people are talking about. They'd like to have credit on their CVs. They'd like to have credit in their tenure and promotion and evaluation processes for doing reviews. We're beginning to see systems being developed that would like to support the notion of providing researchers with some way to say, you're a good reviewer, it's a service to your discipline, it reflects well on your department, your university, on you as a researcher. Let's look for ways, like Publons is one of the first organizations to look at organizing ways to give researchers credit for doing peer review. So a really kind of a radical concept. I'm going to skip that and go to this one. It goes hand in hand with this notion, which is also really radical, of incentivizing peer review. It's almost unthinkable for most of us to imagine an environment where we not only could be getting credit for the peer review that we're conducting, but we also might get some type of remuneration for it. We have organizations like Faculty of 1,000 Research, which is a Biomed Central published open journal, Frontiers in Biological Research, scientific reports published by Nature and PeerJ. We're all experimenting with different ways of giving financial credit to peer reviewers. Not necessarily in the terms of a cash payment, but the general model that supports many open access journals is that there's no fee to subscribe to the journal. The cost of publishing in an open access journal is covered by an article processing charge that's paid up front. So journals like PeerJ, scientific reports, will give you credit towards the next article that you publish in that journal. So it costs you less to publish in the journal if you're a reviewer that does a good job, gets your reviewers in on time. You actually get not just credit towards your CV, but also a direct financial benefit from the publications process. That was heresy to think of even 4 or 5 years ago, but it's something that is slowly gaining a toehold, and where will it go? I don't know, but all of these things combined really are signs that point to the fact that the traditional peer review process is, due to the fact we have an open environment and due to the fact that we have this enormous influx of new technological advances, it's going to break open, and it is going to, I think, finally undergo a significant change. And hopefully in 5 years, when someone else is up here talking about peer review, it's not going to look the way that it looks today. And it will be something that is a remarkably different and hopefully better and more flexible process. The third trend that is really amazing, and that I wanted to spend a couple of minutes giving you a few examples of, is the open environment is also, besides kind of attacking the sacred cow of peer review must be done this way, is beginning to have an effect on how research evaluators, administrators, and individual researchers are thinking about and beginning to conduct assessment and evaluation of research outputs. And this is pretty amazing too. When we first started talking about open access, people would say, I want to publish in an open access journal because I won't get the same kind of credit towards my grant, towards tenure, towards promotion. I'm just not sure about it. It's new, it's untested. And we would never talk about tenure and promotion and that kind of stuff. It was like kind of touching the third rail, right? We wanted to prove that open access journals had the same kind of quality, the same kind of editorial rigor. All of that was incredibly important for the first 7 or 8 years of the open access movement. All of a sudden, we're seeing a little bit more openness. That was my phone, sorry about that. It's probably my mom. I told Tara, my mom learned how to text. And she texts me in the middle of the day, and I have a full-time job, and she'll go, "What you doing?" I'm doing.
She's having a cupcake.
She's having white chocolate, which is there, Mom. I said it. I'm sorry. It's great, but I actually was joking. I'm like, I'm going to be giving a talk, and she's going to buzz. I know it's her. But assessment, peer review, tenure and promotion, these sort of sacred cows that we wouldn't touch are really beginning to be put on a block. And people are allowing themselves to have conversations about maybe there's a way. None of us like it. When we go to campuses, we'll talk. This is always amazes me. Whatever campus I go to that's a Spark member, I'll talk to research administrators, vice chancellors for research, deans, and we'll say, tenure and promotion, and they'll say to me, "Oh yeah, it would be great if we could find a better way to do it. And yeah, I'd love to find new measures. Oh, impact factor, it's all we've got. It'd be great if we had something else, but." The faculty just really don't want to go there. And then we'll talk to the faculty and they'll say, we'd love to have new ways to do this, but God, the research administrators, tenure and promotion committee, they don't want to touch it. We're like, we just need to get you guys in the same room at the same time. And I actually think we've found a way to facilitate a conversation around, rather than just saying, we wish it could be different. Here are some ways that we're actually seeing emerging in the open environment that show us a different way to think about things. The way we're traditionally measured in the academy right now tends to be around measures that are not as granular as we would like, right? So we're all familiar with impact factors, right? Which measure the average number of citations a set of articles gets in a journal over a 2-year period, right? That impact factor is not measuring the impact, how many citations your individual article is getting. It's measuring an aggregate statistic of the citations in a journal package over a period of time. And it was interesting in a paper-based world, right, where we really couldn't count how many sets of eyeballs ever looked at your article. The best aggregate that we had was the number of people who ultimately we know read the article because they cited it over time and it appeared in this journal. That somehow has become a proxy for the value of your individual work that research administrators, research evaluators have relied on and continue to rely on. And I don't know a single academic, researcher, working scientist, working researcher who wouldn't rather be assessed on the value of their actual work, of the ideas in their article, in their monograph, in what they're publishing. So what we've seen spring up in the open environment are a set of metrics that are attached to every individual article, and in fact to components in articles that measure exactly that. What's happening with your article? Who's reading it? Who's using it? How many times is it being used? Where is it being used? And a whole host of other characteristics about the life that your research entity or article or monograph is having out there on the open web. So this is an iteration of article level metrics being applied to an article in a PLOS journal. They're used widely across a whole host of open access journals. So PLOS is just an example that I tend to go to them as my go-to example, but this is by no means localized to this particular publisher. And you can click on the little tab that says metrics, and it'll give you a whole bunch of different things that you can look at. The first thing that people generally tend to be interested in is how many times did people look at my article? And you can actually map the amount of time. You can see the number of times people have viewed this particular article. So this article in the first 8 months of its life has been viewed 45,000 times. Is that a high number or a low number, right? In some senses, it's all relative, right? We need the context, right? This person may be thrilled to death that they've got 45,000 views on their article because they were expecting 10 of their closest friends to care about it, and they've got this instead. Or they thought this was a groundbreaking, Nobel Prize winning idea, and they're crushed that this is the audience for it. But you can map the trends, you can see when people are using your article, you can see if it's gaining an interest. You can do all kinds of things about the relative usage of your article. And that can be something that's useful to you and to a research evaluator in context. But additionally, you can see all kinds of other things about the usage of your article. You can see, this is, if we scroll down the page, this is what you would see under that chart. You can see citations as they build. Now again, this article is only 8-month-old, so it's not unusual that there's only 2 citations in Scopus, and in the number of citations is relatively small at this point. That's totally expected. Citations accrue over time. You also can see, though, when the article matures, is it getting the kind of citations that you would like it to see? And they're not aggregate, right? They're not proxies. They're not aggregated with other citations in a journal. They're just yours. They're just that article. It's just this idea and the kind of validation that it's getting out in the world. You also can measure, and again, you may say, why is this important? What could this possibly tell us? Social media interactions around your article. So this article may only have 2 citations in Scopus, 2 in Crossref, but something was happening on Facebook where there was a conversation going on about this article with 341 mentions of the article in 8 months. And what's fascinating is that you're not stuck just going, gee, I wonder what that was about, because you can drill down, you can click on that Facebook mention, and you can see the actual conversation, who's talking about my article, ditto with the Twitter conversation. So all of a sudden, you're seeing other dimensions of the aspect of the impact of your research out there in the world. You're not just limited to saying, 45,000 people downloaded my article. You can map that across, there's different tools that are available with article level metrics to see where were those 45,000 people mapped on the world. So you can see the global reach of your research. You can see if the interest is concentrated in different geographic areas. You can see that you can see that I've been cited, where I've been cited, who cited me. You can see there's been conversation about me on Twitter and Facebook in my article, who talked about me. You can see something about the identity of the people who are interested in your work. And that is, that's a characteristic of social media, right? That's building those communities, building those networks. But it also is incredibly gratifying to researchers to be able to understand more about the identity of who's talking about you in all of these various places. The same holds, article level metrics track mentions of your articles in the blogosphere, whether it's technical blogs, whether it's popular blogs, in the media, popular media, trade media, media in your discipline, in Wikipedia, in all kinds of different areas. This was an example that I actually gave to somebody who was at the CDC. They were interested in potentially applying article level metrics to articles in the CDC's repository because they were curious about, if we've got an article on malaria, how do we know that it's an article that our funding has had any kind of impact? And on this one article, we just kind of pulled some of the tweets that were relating back to the article, and they're saying, it's things like Malaria Network, PAHO, and WHO. And CDC could say, we invested in this research, this article appeared, and it's having policy impact and like actual health policy impacts in the real world. So it's identity plus all kinds of different measures of impact that we can now begin to trace. And I can tell you from experience that it's pretty amazing when you, for the first time, like you can say, oh yeah, that sounds like it would be really interesting to be able to track what's happening to my article. I published an article late last year. It was the first one that I ever published that had article level metrics associated with it. And the first day it had 248 views or some number like that. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. And then the next day I woke up and I swear to you, the first thing I thought of was, I wonder how many views I have. And then it was refresh. And got a few views. I was really excited about it. But then when the shares started to come up and I could see who was tweeting about me, it became, I realized, ego crack. Like you could not stop looking at it. And when I say this to people, they laugh, but you go, tell me who among you wouldn't do the same thing, right? It becomes the thing you're compelled to do. And that's fine, that's the thing that hooks you in. But what then ends up happening is I actually ended up contacting people that I didn't know were interested or working in open access in Brazil, in Argentina, places that were we were very interested in establishing partnerships and understanding about what's happening in terms of open access advocacy in those areas. And I have colleagues now out of the fact that the article level metrics returned this information to me. I'm not evaluated for tenure and promotion on what I publish. Many people are. The establishment of these communities, these contacts, these ties, collaborators, broadening of your community, these are things that research administrators and research evaluators could be, should be, and would be interested in potentially adding to the evaluation mix, so that it's not a single, impact factor is probably not going to go away anytime soon, but these additional measures, these additional layers of the story of the impact and import of your research can be added into the mix. And that is a really powerful and I think important trend for us to watch, is how will things shake out with this new set of metrics. It's the Wild West at this point. You can game them the same way that you can game impact factors. They're imperfect. It's going to take a while before we see what's of value and what's not. But right now, we as the academic community have the ability to shape how this plays out, right? And to bring these to the attention of people in our disciplines and to say, hey, publishers of open access journals, it's great that you're measuring this, but how about providing me with the ability to measure something else? And if there's something that's of import, these are open metrics, and the source code for article level metrics, again, can be used by anybody, it can be modified by anybody, it can be augmented to measure other things, which is a pretty remarkable, I think, development. The fourth trend that I wanted to touch on is this idea of, we had disaggregation of the publishing model, right, of the scholarly publishing model, but there's sort of an opposite thing that's happening in terms of research infrastructure and scholarly communication infrastructure writ large, and that we're seeing an aggregation of it. Right? We're seeing some things fly apart and other things coalesce. And the coalescence that we're seeing is really around the infrastructure that allows us to share the outputs of research in a more connected way, and in a connected way by and large that is controlled more closely by the people who are producing research outputs. So OpenAIR is an example of a network of digital repositories across European countries. And digital repositories, as I mentioned, right, have been established essentially as a home for openly accessible articles, monographs, but increasingly data sets, open educational resources, all kinds of outputs of scholarly research. And you guys have a great one here on Maryland's campus. If you want to deposit, talk to Terry. But the repositories have tended to operate as standalone repositories. And in Europe, as part of their research investment, they invest in their scientific research and scientific and scholarly research investments in 7-year periods. As part of their last framework, they wanted to do not just an experiment, but a real project that said, it's great that we have digital repositories across Europe, but we think that Europe as an economic and scientific R&D, scholarly R&D entity would be more powerful and more effective if all of these repositories could talk to one another, and if the materials that were in these repositories could be easily shared, could easily be discovered, could easily be worked on, computed on, used across repositories. And they've created this, they're beginning to create an interoperable network of shared repositories with materials that can be utilized in exactly that way. It's kind of slow going if anybody's ever tried to work on interoperability of a large scale. You know, it's essentially their nodes on a backbone. It's not an easy thing to do, but that aggregation is beginning to really happen and beginning to, I think, pay dividends for Europe. The European Commission, as a result of the success of getting these archives, digital archives networked, has actually made it a requirement that any, in their latest funding framework, which goes from this year through 2020, they call it the Horizon 2020 funding, that all of the research that the European Commission funds comes with the caveat that if you take funding from the European Commission to do research in any discipline, from the life sciences to the humanities, any article that reports on that research has to be made openly accessible in a digital repository and put on the OpenAIR network so that it's freely shared in an open access environment. It's a pretty radical, they did a 5-year pilot on 20% of their funded research, found that it was successful, that it did not hurt any discipline, that it actually had more benefits than it had potential drawbacks, and that is the policy that's in place. But it's aggregation with the aim of allowing the research funders and the creators of research to have more of a say in how their research is developed. And we're seeing that expand to the data world, where organizations are getting together to try to do a similar project, although not creating the actual physical infrastructure in terms of networking a specific set of repositories, but rather to create the underlying rules to help data repositories and institutions that are working with data sets, which, let's face it, is every institution. And if it's not right now, it is going to be in the next 5 minutes. That what we're producing is digital data, and that is what we need to have a set of rules and sort of parameters on how we can share effectively. Closer to home, University of Maryland is a member of the Association of Research Libraries, and ARL, along with the higher ed associations, the AAU and APLU, have also announced a commitment to doing something very similar to OpenAir, to find a way to network digital repositories that exist on our campuses, like the University of Maryland, with other campus digital repositories in order to create a new research ecosystem, really, where the works that are produced on our campuses are retained by our campuses, first and foremost, articles, data sets, books, texts, classroom materials, but then are also shared and available for our colleagues and our collaborators to work on in a collective way. This aggregation is it's an idea that I think people have had for a while, that this would be the ultimate ultimate outcome of an open environment that has good infrastructure. It's really the first iteration of trying to have a realization of this on a large scale across our campuses. Lest, though, that we think everything's always rosy in the open environment, the publishing industry has also understood that this idea of aggregation is a way to retain control. And while the academy is saying the open environment provides us with an opportunity to regain control of resources that we have ceded to third parties in the past, many publishers are working to kind of retain the control that they've had for the last several decades. And there's examples like this iteration is a group of publishers, about 100 publishers, that have gotten together as the US government has announced their intention to follow the European Commission's lead and say, if the US government funds scientific or scholarly research, we want those articles openly accessible. The publishers have said, that's great, we think that's wonderful, except we want to aggregate that content and control it on publisher websites and control when you can access it, what you can do with it, who gets access to it. So it's open access, but controlled open access. It's not open access at all, in fact. But this trend of aggregation of infrastructure, this project has been presented to the US government and federal agencies and is trying to be sold to the library and research community as this is necessary infrastructure. The publishers are providing a service, and this is necessary infrastructure. So how this will all play out, we shall see. I think that more open initiatives have an advantage in this environment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they win. And the last thing that I want to touch on before we take questions and chat a little bit more is this idea of policies, right? So I mentioned the European Commission's mandate to share research, which I'll touch on again, and I touched on the US government requirement. It's been amazing that since 2003, we had the National Institutes of Health here in the US have that idea that if the federal government, in their case, the National Institutes of Health, which funds $30 billion worth of the $60 billion of federally funded scientific research that the US funds every year, the NIH funds about half of it, that institute basically said, look, we think that communication of results is part and parcel of the research, right? If we fund you to do an experiment and you can't or you don't or you won't communicate what you found, what was the value in us investing in that research to begin with? We feel like the value will only be fully realized if you share that research as widely as possible. That was an incredibly controversial idea, believe it or not, when it was raised in 2003, and it took 5 years for Congress to get through a requirement for NIH-funded researchers to in fact follow that policy. That policy has been in place now for 7 years, and as a result of it, there's more than 3 million articles that are available for free to anybody who wants to use them that are reporting on NIH research. And the question was, would anybody really want to use them that wasn't already using them? Articles are deposited into NIH's digital repository called PubMed Central, And that repository sees over 1 million unique individual users access and download articles every day. Not every month, but every day. There's 1 million people who hit that database to get information, scholarly articles, journal articles every day. And only less than about a quarter of the people who hit that database come from domains that are .edu domains, come from higher ed institutions. The rest are coming from the general public, coming from domains, commercial domains, coming from people, everyday folks. It's been amazingly successful in providing access to a layer of information that the public, we thought there was a demand for, NIH bet that there was a demand for, but we couldn't prove it. Now they've proved it. And they've proven it so successfully that last February, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy said, we want to see all other federal agencies, whatever kind of research that you produce, we think you should have a similar policy. And they issued, the Obama administration issued a directive saying, you've got to follow the NIH's lead, essentially. There's a lot of leeway in how agencies can do this, but that directive is out there. And right now, federal agencies ranging in disciplines from digital humanities to energy to agriculture to museum and library studies are creating their policies that will be released probably in the next month or so. The agencies have them in their hands and are about ready to release them to the general public that will put these rules in place, and we'll have a better sense of what the environment will look like in terms of regulations in each of our individual disciplines. Right now, as I mentioned, half of taxpayer-funded research is available to the public. The other half will be available sometime in the very near future here in the United States. As I mentioned, that mirrors the policy that's in place in Europe and increasingly in other countries. Actually, one of the things I love now is actually as a result of that article, I got a tweet the other day from a colleague in Mexico City that they're moving an open access policy that looks like the NIH policy and the White House directive and Horizon 2020 through the Mexican political system. And she tweeted, and you could tweet at people, and she tweeted at myself and someone else that the bill had just passed the Mexican commission of, or board of commissioners or whatever, and I'm thinking, I've got to go research on Wikipedia what the Mexican political system looks like how far in the process is that, like it passed the House and now it has to pass the Senate, but policies are moving in a variety of different places that will have a net effect of accelerating the amount of content that's openly accessible, but also the pressure, I think, on our communities to make stuff accessible. And the last slide is something that actually just happened last week, and I think it's worth mentioning here because it's kind of the most radical development in the policy environment that we've had. In the United Kingdom, in England, they have a higher education funding council for England. And this is really, it's different. We don't have the same kind of body here in the US because I think probably most of us will say, thankfully, we don't have the same kind of process that they do in the UK. HEFCE, this organization, provides funding to universities and colleges, right? And it provides a significant amount of the funding for the universities and colleges to operate. Every 6 years, the universities and colleges undergo what's called a research assessment exercise where they're scored. They get a numerical score, and if you think impact factors make people nervous, your HEFCE research assessment, our RAE score, really keeps people up at night. The amount of money that your university is awarded depends on how you score in performance areas on this HEFCE exercise. And last week, this council announced that compliance with national and campus open access policies was going to be a component and a required component that you're going to be scored on as a higher education institution in the United Kingdom. In other words, if you are not making the research that's funded by the Research Councils UK or that's coming up from your campuses openly accessible under the guidelines that have been established, you are going to score lower in this assessment process and your university will receive less funding from the government. That is going to change radically how academics in the UK respond and adapt to open access. And this is across disciplines, again, from humanities to physical sciences. It's also, I think, going to have a knockoff effect on the rest of the world because our research, our scholarship is so global. There's collaborations among researchers that if I'm a researcher at an institution in the United Kingdom, I've got this requirement, but I'm collaborating with someone here in the United States or someone in Argentina or someone in India, then I've got to make my article available within these parameters. I've got to communicate to my colleagues that this is not negotiable for me. This has to happen. And that will help us, I think, as individual academics also put pressure to move the ball more towards open in other areas where there's, in some senses, reluctance to be as aggressive as they are in the United Kingdom. I would never suggest that we'd want to repeat the research assessment exercise that they do. Here, I think most of our institutions would really not like that. But it's a really interesting pressure point, and it is going to have, I think, a significant change on what we see in the system. So those very broad and very sort of different areas, I think, intersect quite a bit. They're the trend lines that I would point to. There's many more, actually. There's lots and lots more. But those would be the ones that I would highlight as things that you really want to keep your eye on, because they're not coming soon to a theater near you. They're arrived, right? They're on the marquee, and it's just a matter of time before they're gonna be in your office in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to stop there, and if you have questions or areas that you'd like to dig into, I'd be happy to do it. And thank you very much for coming.
I have a question.
Pat has a question.
Which may be too desperate, but since you see all these parts, and that's to me what's exciting about listening to you. I heard you a few years ago, and every time there's such a wonderful progression. This is wonderful progress. So if you could say, how do you think an ideal system would work, a real open system? Where would the money come from? Where would it be fair? Because right now, I think those of us in academic libraries, yes, we push. Terry does wonderful work with the repository. We're trying to support publishing fees and all, but then we feel like, or at least I wonder, are we just heading down the garden path and we're going to end up in the same place in 10 years? What model should we really, you've got all these parts, what would a real cohesive thing look like?
So that's a great question, and I think first and foremost, we have enough money in the system that's running right now that's supporting traditional scholarly publishing in subscription journals to run an amazing open communication system. The scholarly journal publications market is a $10 billion a year revenue producing industry. And the library, academic library community makes up 80% of the customer base of that market. 10 billion with a B. That's the National Football League's revenue stream, by the way. Actually, I think last year sorry, bad slip. I was a scholarly publisher for 15 years. I worked for Elsevier for 11 months of those 15 years. I take part of the rap. Not all of it, 11 months. We outstrip the NFL's profit margins. That money is in the system, and it needs to be redistributed and redirected. And you're right that one of the things, the fears is that if you get into a model of open access journals that are supported with article processing fees rather than subscriptions, that the commercial publishing market is a smart market. They don't make $10 billion a year, right, by being stupid. They're going to figure out a way to leverage that, and we're just going to be in the same situation. But actually, the thing that's different is that the person who sees the price tag right now of the subscription is the librarian. Not the author, not the author who's publishing in the journal, or the reader who's actually reading the material. There's an intermediary that takes the sting out of the transaction, right? We don't see what's actually being paid in this transaction. When you're an author and you're having to make a choice of what journal to publish in, and the money is coming either from a fund that your library set up that you have to apply for, or your research funder says, I'll set aside X amount of money, or your university says if your research grant doesn't have the funding, you come and apply it here, and you have to see what it costs, and you have to compare the price tag of where am I going to publish, the price sensitivity begins to be built back into the market. Price sensitivity has been taken out by this intermediation. One of the really, I think, encouraging aspects of how this model is being set up is that middleman is being I'm not trying to suggest libraries don't have a role, which I just realized was coming out of my mouth, but you know what I mean? The middleman is being taken out of that portion of the equation. We're seeing actually evidence that this is happening, right? So the Wellcome Trust in the UK has been, they've had an open access policy requirement for their funded researchers since 2008. And they recently, in fact, over the last month, have run an analysis of where's their money going, how much are the article processing fees for those publishers, and you know what's the comparative value. What they're seeing is Elsevier is getting the lion's share of their money. It's their prices are for article processing fees are on aggregate something like 3 times higher than other publishers. So the Wellcome Trust is looking at that, and they're publishing this openly. And they're saying, now we're going to ask the question, is it worth it? What is Elsevier delivering that's worth 3 times what PLOS is delivering, or Frontiers is delivering, or PeerJ is delivering? And they're going to ask that question, and they're going to refine their policy of, are we going to spend the money on this or not? And Elsevier does not like the fact that this stuff is publicly available, but this is a transparent market, and this is the way we will make a healthy market. So I think the model that we're building, there'll be some variations in terms of what the support mechanisms look like, whether they're article processing fees, whether they're membership models like PeerJ has. Those mechanisms will be a little bit different. But the characteristic will be that the transaction, the fee for service, will be more transparent, and the person who's paying the fee will actually put some controls back into the market, which will help us hopefully not go down. And I'm going to say this, I welcome the welcomes exercise, because it is the model of saying, before we go any further, let's examine. Collectively, let's look at this and let's see if it's worth what we're getting what we paid for. Other questions? Yes.
You talked a little bit about globalization. I'm actually asking this question, but I think I probably know the answer. The countries that you pointed out are actually, countries that respect copyright and other things. So how do we talk to countries that don't have such respect to copyright and privacy and, personal scholarship and stuff like that? And, specifically thinking of Russia, China, places like that.
That's another great question, and if I had the perfect answer for that, my job would be complete at this point. And that's a question that we're wrestling with. And I mean, you're absolutely right that there are places where it is a challenge to operate within even the current system, let alone think about establishing a system that's got hopefully cleaner rules and more transparency. What's encouraging, I would say, is that there are bodies within China, for example, the National Academies of Science in China, oddly enough, has been one of the more vocal proponents for implementing policies for open access to its funded research. And the library of the Chinese academies in particular has been a bastion of trying to bring people into China to talk about promoting the value of open sharing of research. You can imagine that in Beijing and China writ large, the messaging of openly sharing information to have a more informed society is difficult to get a podium to get the message across. But the more that message is being circulated, the more uptake we're seeing in terms of Chinese academics wanting to publish in open access journals. Biomed Central, PeerJ, Hindawi, and PLOS are the largest of the open access publishers, and they report that over the last 4 or 5 years, the single largest growing portion of their submissions are coming from China, and they're going to publish in open access journals. I think as academics see the benefits of publishing in open access journals, that helps to change the culture somewhat. Not enough. There's a lot more work that's going to need to be done. And in terms of Russia right now, there were conversations that were happening around open access policies and open access policy implementation in the G8. The G8 has a corollary body that they just started convening, the G8 science ministers. They started convening last year, and in their first meeting they put open access on the agenda, and Russia was part of that conversation, and they were beginning to say, like, okay, well, what's happening with the European Commission, what's going on with the US? they were scheduled to meet March 22nd in London, and Russia was asked not to be a part of the G8, so they were not part of the, and this conversation was about implementation of open access policy. So opportunity lost, you know, but that I can honestly say is a bit above my pay grade to rectify at this moment. So it's a bit of an incomplete answer, but I think it's a fluid, really fluid situation. Yes?
Most of the examples that you pointed to have to do with the sciences. I'm not a history librarian, and I have not actually seen much evidence that open access journals have made much inroads among historians, or maybe even humanists in general. So I don't know if you can comment on that.
I think that your observation is absolutely correct. There, I think, has been more visible uptake and progress in open access in, first of all, biological sciences, then life sciences, and sort of moving into physical sciences. Certainly there are examples and iterations of open access journals in the humanities. We had a conversation at the MIP project today about this very question, that we do seem to have a little bit of a divide between the humanities and, to some degree, the social sciences, the life sciences and physical sciences, in terms of the faster uptake and in terms of the things that appeal. I think one reason we have the faster uptake and the drive for change in the biological and physical sciences is that that's where the pressure is in terms of people not being able to get access to the journals that they want because the price tags are so damn high. And in history, we tend not to have that problem. And in humanities, we really tend not to have that problem. So I think the sense of urgency hasn't been as strong. I do think that that's changing as we have more digital humanities projects that are really visionary and groundbreaking, beginning to kind of shine a little bit more light on what's possible. In history, if you had advice in terms of what would be a motivator, it would be super helpful, because it was really interesting to me to see the American Historical Association recommend to PhD students that their doctoral dissertations be embargoed for 6 years over a concern that they wouldn't be able to publish their theses as books. But the evidence that we have is not complete yet, but the preponderance says, most university presses don't consider that it's the availability in an open repository to be a barrier to publication. So, I mean, I would almost turn the question around and say, help, what can we do to make the case to historians and to, by extension, some other of the humanities disciplines that would make it appealing?
I personally think that there's so much involved in prestige of publishers. I mean, in humanities.
Mm-hmm.
Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, Yale University Press, there's so much bound up in that I think it's going to be very difficult to overcome that. I don't know if that's, again, I don't know the science.
Yeah, no, prestige is that's the name of the game, right? Everybody wants to publish in the best journal, right? The recognition that that name game is really important. When you were giving the examples of the presses, the wheels started turning in my head. I'm like, Cambridge, Oxford, UK-based university presses that are now resident in institutions that Hefke covers. Is that going to happen? I need to call. I was literally in the UK yesterday and the day before, and I was at Cambridge, and I wanted to visit the press desperately and just didn't have a chance to do it. But note to self, go back and look at that, because I wonder if that will have an effect, and if those presses in particular are the name brand presses, it may actually. Thank you. Thank you. You had a question behind? Oh, okay.
I have a few questions. The first one, how to prevent abuse in terms of plagiarism, for example?
So that's actually a really great question, and the answer is that what we see is that when articles are available in an open access environment, plagiarism detection is actually easier, because you can run programs and algorithms to detect plagiarism much more easily on non-DRM, non-digital, non-controlled, subscription-controlled manuscripts and articles than on closed ones. So it's totally counterintuitive when you think about it, but you're nodding your head behind it. Have you had experience with?
No, it just makes sense.
It's amazing. That is actually something that we actually have data on, which is hopefully happy news.
Second question. Say somebody has a book-length manuscript that he or she wants to have published by a prestigious publisher, but also, and wants to have it in print, but also would like to have it available electronically in an open access way. What would you specifically advocate that the person look for in the course of working out a contract with that publisher?
So we have great examples of publishers that provide exactly that service. The National Academies Press, believe it or not, pioneered that model, which is a really lovely model for authors in general, and also for what the presses are finding for the presses themselves. The open availability of your manuscript on the web tends to drive the sale of your book. It's a great marketing tool. So what we generally tend to advise authors to do is make sure that you negotiate a contract with the press that says that your book is available under pure open access, right? So that people are able to download, to do whatever they want to do with it, that there's not an overly restrictive license on it. Look for, you know, CC BY or equivalent license, so that content is truly open. And then the terms and conditions in terms of what you're paid, you know, in terms of the print is, it's a model that makes, I think, intuitive sense, right? It's a value add for the person who wants to receive a printed bound copy of your book to say, I can get the full text, that's great, I can get the ideas, but there's something about the format of the print book that is of value to me. So the press will generally sell those books and give you a royalty contract based on the sales of the print material. And, you know, what the amount is, that I wouldn't stipulate, but that is a legitimate model, and it is a contract that more and more authors are actually negotiating. It's sort of the best of both worlds model, and it's a great model when you think about, for the future of publishers, we always were trying to think, and that was another trend I sort of toyed with talking about, but I wasn't sure like how much into the economics we might want to delve. What we're seeing with the commercial publishers in general is this notion that they know, I mean, they're fighting it tooth and nail, but they understand that the days of reaping that $10 billion revenue stream from tight control of primary content, they're numbered they're numbered at best. And what they've been doing is investing in a variety of different iterations of where are we going to get our money from. One is this notion of overlay services, of value-added services, either for producing the content in different formats that is of value, or providing services that you overlay on the aggregation of contents, discovery services. They're trying to monetize text and data mining services, but they're also buying the technology that the platforms that will go up a vertical stack, right? So they're buying not just the hosting platforms, but when I was describing the social media aggregations like Mendeley and academia.org, Elsevier bought Mendeley last year, right? And they're going to start buying up the services that look at. So we're actually trying as open access advocates to think about, like, what's our venture capital strategy to block these acquisitions and keep them community-based products and services. But the economics of the marketplace is that's the pressure point that open access is really trying to push on, and you know, we'll see what's going to happen with that. You have one more question?
I'm known for asking 3 questions, so let me ask the third.
You can ask 5.
Preservation.
Yeah.
With open access, what can you comment on what is going to be done during the years ahead to ensure that what is available electronically in terms of open access will remain accessible as the technology and the software and everything else rapidly evolve?
So I think there's nothing different about open access content and subscription access content in a digital environment. The preservation techniques and options that are there for subscription access content are there for open access content as well. I don't think that there's anything magic about, I'm looking at my librarians and preservationists to say, hopefully I'm right, I think I'm right on that front. However, that said, it's not the technological changes that we worry about, because we believe that we have institutions and experts that are in place that will help us in these transitions. What we're worried about are the exclusions of content. Right now, we actually had a conversation with one of your colleagues who came in earlier and asked a question about a single open access journal publisher that the Directory of Open Access Journals is raising its requirements for inclusion in the Index of Open Access Journals and saying that you have to have these editorial standards and these preservation standards, and this journal is published in Macedonia and can't afford the fee for Clocks, Locks, Portico, which are the general sort of places that journals go that have a fee associated with it. And she said, well, what's the option for a single open access journal with really no resources? And that's a great question. We need to get, I don't know the answer, I need to get the answer to that. But even more, I worry about something that somebody told me the other day, which is, despite the fact that NIH's repository, PubMed Central, has a great amount of content in it, Elsevier deposits content on behalf of its publishers. And when two publishers recently left the Elsevier fold, they renegotiated their contract, Elsevier pulled the content out of PubMed Central that they had deposited on behalf of that publisher, which I didn't think was allowed, and I don't understand how those terms and conditions were negotiated. Like, my fear is actually that we think that once it's deposited in a repository like PMC, it's preserved. Like, they've got pretty good preservation mechanisms at the National Library of Medicine. If a publisher can yank content out, that's not good. And I wasn't aware of that. So those are the things I worry about more than the technology questions, which are ubiquitous across the
There's also the cost, who's going to fund keeping up with this?
Yeah. This is the eternal question your libraries ask every day and struggle with. So.
We're probably taken a lot of Heather's time. Is there one more fast question, maybe?
I had a question, but it's not very fast.
Oh, okay. Well, how do you feel? This will be the last one.
Maybe you can answer it fast. I don't know.
Yes.
So
green 14. So I was like, I have a question, Mommy. 14.
Going back to your fourth point, which was about aggregation of infrastructure. So I think at this point we can assume that any research university needs to have a digital repository. Beyond the digital repository, what other infrastructure might a university library be able to contribute to the long-term efforts in this area? Where can libraries get a piece of the pie?
Well, I think libraries get a piece of the pie it's not necessarily thinking about physical infrastructure, but the expertise that's resident in the libraries. I mean, it's changed tremendously. One thing that we've seen as the open access movement has kind of begun to grow up a little bit is the fact that people on campus will turn to the library for help and advice on issues that they're recognizing are now central to the key mission, the core mission of a university, whether it's a research university or a non-research intensive university, which is the advancement and conveyance of knowledge. Right? They look at it and they say, this is now the nerve center for where everything sort of passes through. And the libraries, rather than saying, we're going to come to you because you're the place where everything goes to be stored, they want to come to you because you're the place where the knowledge is about how that information can most gracefully be infused and diffused within our community at the university, and then how can our brand be elevated through the material that's produced on our campus. So I think about for example, like you have a repository that's got content in it. Well, that's great, but that's core infrastructure in the terms of technical infrastructure. What's also core to the university is the visibility of the information or the materials that are in that repository. And the library tends to be the place that understands this is how this material can be branded, whether it's a data set, whether it's educational resources. What are the collaborations that we can build that can extend and raise the visibility of this material that's branded as University of Maryland's research outputs? The libraries are also the locus of expertise, right? We talked about the policies. When the NIH policy went into place, Terry and I talked about this earlier today, one of the things that happened on a lot of campuses was the regulation came down from Congress in December of 2007. By January of 2008, the offices of sponsored research were going, what is this? And the library community went, we know, and we can help you make sure that you're in compliance. We know exactly what they're talking about with these, depositing manuscripts in PubMed Central and, tracking compliance. And all of a sudden, the relationship between the library on campus and the Office of Sponsored Research was a very different one, because there was a locus of expertise in keeping the $30 billion of NIH funding that was flowing through the system and into the universities a viable option for the campus. So I think there's the, I would have a hard time identifying the technical infrastructure, but those kinds of layers of expertise that go along with that infrastructure are, they're almost limitless when you think about the possibilities that come along with repositories.
That was an excellent question, because Heather was here to talk about the future of research libraries, and I think she took away one of our duties right in the middle of things, which was wonderful, and she ended up with one, giving us one at the end. So we are so lucky to have someone with her expertise right here in the area, and who's willing to, she's all over the world all the time.
I went here. I undergrad, and yeah, I was like so excited to come here.
Well, she is the expert, and as I said, seeing this progression every time this is talked about, like here you had something, this happened yesterday, this happened a month ago. It's really exciting, and we aren't there yet, but I love that straight up line. So let's thank her. This is really